a sadistic little girl, an extremely dumb boy, and the literal Grim Reaper. Today we're gonna cover the show The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy from start to end in detail. So kick back, relax, and let's dig into it.
We don't care about the Grim Reaper the same way we don't care about Puddin's uncle being an astronaut.
Grim, the talkative magical skeleton. Who is he? Hailed from a place called the Underworld, he resided with his undead family. Grim had quite a childhood in the Underworld. 130,000 years ago, he attended Doomsday Junior High School, a place filled with all sorts of supernatural beings and familiar faces from the show. Alongside him were classmates like Eris, Nergal, Payne, and, unfortunately, the notorious Boogeyman. Now, Boogeyman had a special fondness for targeting Grim, making his life a living nightmare. As the school bully, he took great pleasure in making Grim's existence as miserable as possible. That's when he befriended a spider lady named Velma, who shared his disliking of the Boogeyman. But things took an unexpected turn when a Reaper position opened up and an election was held at their school to determine who would fill the role. Both Velma and Grim participated in the election alongside Boogeyman, which was a little awkward to be honest.
Friend versus friend!
In the midst of the election, Velma was leading the way, and there was no chance for anyone else to the spot. However, just when things seemed to be going smoothly, disaster struck. The Boogeyman, up to his old tricks, destroyed a significant portion of the votes and tried to manipulate the ballot box in his favor. Thankfully, Grim stepped in and thwarted the Boogeyman's cheating attempts, recognizing that Velma was the deserving candidate. Grim decided to stuff the box with votes in her favor, but Velma caught Grim in the act and misunderstood his intentions. She believed he was trying to cheat for himself, which left her feeling hurt and betrayed. After Velma ran off crying, Grim couldn't contain his anger towards the Boogeyman anymore. He went after him and unleashed his fury with the prototype Scythe that was actually meant for the winner. It was an epic beatdown that caught the attention of everyone who hadn't voted yet. They were so impressed by Grim's courage that they decided to vote for him, even though he had cheated for Velma. In the end, Grim emerged as the winner of the election and became the Grim Reaper. During his first day as the Grim Reaper, a young Grim, for the first time, takes the soul of a human crushed under a wheel. As Grim continues his solemn duty, he encounters an aged witch who is destined to be reaped. To Grim's surprise, the witch doctor possesses the ability to glimpse into his future. She prophesies a fate in which Grim becomes a humble servant to two children, those being Billy and Mandy.
And that's when Billy met Mandy.
Billy and Mandy come from ordinary families in the suburban town of Endswell. Their friendship started in a rather unusual way. When they were just babies, Billy went over to Mandy's house and began annoying her by repeatedly ringing her doorbell. Eventually, Mandy answered the door, but he wasn't too pleased to see her. Billy noticed Mandy's lack of a nose and decided to playfully stick an ice cream cone in her face. This unexpected action infuriated Mandy, leading her to punch Billy in the face and call him a creep before slamming the door shut. However, Billy, being his carefree self, just laughed it off and confidently declared, "She digs me." According to Harold, Billy's father, that event marked the beginning of their enduring friendship, setting the stage for the countless adventures that they would share together in the future.
Yeah! And now you're our best friend forever!
Years later, it was Billy's pet Mr. Snuggles' birthday, but things took a wild turn when the Grim Reaper showed up to claim his soul. Mandy, never the one to back down, challenges Grim to a game. If he wins, he keeps Mr. Snuggles, but if he loses, he has to become their best friend forever. They headed to Limbo for the showdown, but Grim couldn't resist cheating. Just as he was about to win, Mandy unleashed a surprise attack with Mr. Snuggles, throwing Grim off balance and securing their victory. Now stuck with his promise, Grim became their best friend forever, much to his dismay. Moreover, if Grim does not honor his promise, he will be forever imprisoned in the Underworld jail. And so, their crazy adventures began. Grim, Billy, and Mandy, an unlikely trio exploring the supernatural, facing hilarious trials, and forming an unbreakable bond. The kids might be cool with having the Grim Reaper as their buddy, but not everyone shares the same sentiment. When Billy's mom, Gladys, first lays eyes on Grim, she understandably freaks out big time. At first, she tries to convince herself that it's just her imagination playing tricks on her. But when she comes face to face with Grim and realizes he's the real deal, she has a major meltdown. Poor Gladys ends up seeking refuge at her sister-in-law's place, Billy's Aunt Sis, to escape the Grim Reaper-induced panic surges. It's safe to say that having Grim around is not exactly a comforting sight for everyone in Endsville, but having a Grim Reaper as your best friend does have its perks, such as making him do chores for you and baking you pie. Who knew that the personification of death could also be a handy helper and a talented baker? Now stuck with Billy and Mandy, Grim finds himself bored and craving some excitement in his afterlife. One day, feeling the need for a change of pace, he decides to pursue his dream of becoming a swimsuit model. However, being a walking skeleton doesn't exactly make him the ideal candidate for the job. Billy and Mandy give him a makeover, transforming his skeletal appearance into something more human-like. With his new look, Grim lands a gig in a TV ad, but as luck would have it, he is only shown for a few seconds, and to his dismay, he is portrayed as an unattractive individual. It is only natural that he misses his days as a soul collector. However, due to a bet, he is unable to return to the Underworld, causing his fellow Underworld colleagues to find great amusement in his predicament. He tries to adjust to his new life and help people, but it goes as well as you would expect. People are frightened by his skeletal appearance, making it difficult for Grim to connect with them and offer his assistance. Now, having the Grim Reaper as your best friend sure has its benefits, like this one time when Billy used Grim's powers to possess Mandy and made her do some crazy things. He had her insult Grim, flirt with his best friend Irvine, kiss Mandy's mother, enter both men's and women's restrooms, and even eat earthworms. Needless to say, Mandy wasn't too thrilled about being controlled like that. Now let's be real, all this shenanigans can really get on Grim's nerves. So when the opportunity arises to ditch Billy and Mandy and leave them with the underground monster Nergal, Grim jumps at the chance. But as fate would have it, he has a change of heart and goes back to save them. Unfortunately, he ends up getting torn apart by Nergal, but fear not, because Mandy comes to the rescue and delivers a powerful kick to Nergal's shin, saving the day once again. It just goes to show that even though Grim may get fed up at times, deep down he truly cares about his friends. However, he isn't always so caring. Later in the show, the kids get snatched up by this guy called Dr. Fear, who wants to make them part of his circus. Grim surprisingly feels a moment of relief without them, but then Billy's mom forces him to go save the day. Grim reluctantly heads to the circus, waiting for the kids to perform so they can finally entertain him for a change. But Mandy breaks free once again, revealing that Dr. Fear is just an earthworm. Remember Gladys, Billy's mom? Well, she's finally back from her vacation at her sister-in-law's place.
I just needed a little vacation after my skeleton episode.
But when she sees Grim still hanging around her house, she decides to take matters into her own hands to protect Billy. Little does she know that Grim is bound by a promise to be their best friend forever. So she starts causing a ruckus, thinking she's doing the right thing. But just as things are about to get out of hand, Billy and Mandy walk in and catch her in the act. In the end, Grim claims that she may have won the battle, but not the war. This one time, panic sets in for Billy and Grim when Irvine doesn't answer the phone and Billy's parents are nowhere to be found. So they start to believe that Mandy is a cannibal who has devoured Billy's parents and friends.
I'm having you for dinner today, Billy. Be there at 6. You too, bonehead.
Determined to find evidence, Billy and Grim investigates Mandy's backyard and stumble upon tiki figures and party decorations. It turns out they were all set up for a surprise celebration of Billy's birthday. But just when they think everything is fine, Mandy lets out a burp and Irvine's glasses come out flying. Okay. Sometime later, after Mandy threw him a birthday party, he decided to return the favor. He convinces Grim to join him in planning a surprise birthday party for Mandy. Reluctantly, Grim agrees, and together they start preparing a special cake, making sure to keep it all a secret from Mandy. However, when the time comes to surprise her, Mandy's reaction is not what they expected. She reveals that her birthday is actually 5 months away, leaving Billy to foolishly admit that he already knew that. On Halloween night, Billy, Grim, and Mandy set out for some trick-or-treat fun. However, things take a hilarious turn when Grim mistakenly believes a boy's mother to be Atrocia, the host of a popular Halloween TV show. Meanwhile, Billy confuses Gregory for Grim, and Gregory's mother mistakes Grim for Gregory. That was a huge mix-up of different identities, but fear not, by the end of their Halloween adventure, everything is sorted out and back to normal. It's just another one of those wacky and memorable Halloweens with Billy, Grim, and Mandy. During another Halloween night of trick-or-treat, Grim regales Billy and Mandy with the story of Jack-o'-lantern, a mischievous prankster who lost his head but gained the ability to play tricks on Halloween. Dressed as the Grim Reaper, Billy encounters Jack and unwittingly becomes involved in his vengeful plans to make it Halloween forever. With Mandy's strategic plans and Irvine's accidental assistance, they manage to save Grim from Jack's clutches and banish him to the Underworld, where his pumpkin head meets a fitting end. Billy and Irvine are totally hooked on their favorite video game, Beasts and Barbarians. They've been playing for 3 days straight without a break. Concerned about their addiction, Grim comes up with a plan to intervene. He transports them into a real-life version of the game, hoping to teach them a lesson. But as it turns out, Billy and Irvine are actually doing pretty well on their quest, so Grim decides to up the ante by manipulating the traps and challenges himself. Things get intense, but eventually Billy, Mandy, and Grim manage to escape from a gigantic cyclops and return home safely. Poor Irvine though, he was forgotten to remain trapped in the game for now. Due to his obsession with video games and staring directly at the sun, Billy's eyesight takes a hit. Concerned, Mandy and Grim suggest he visit an eye doctor, hoping for glasses or laser surgery. However, stubborn as ever, Billy refuses any conventional solutions. In a desperate move, Grim decides to take matters into his own skeletal hands and zaps Billy's eyes with his trusty Scythe. Miraculously, Billy's vision is restored, but there's a catch. He gains the ability to catch glimpses of the future, particularly gruesome accidents involving his friends. Realizing the potential danger, Grim frantically tries to reverse the effects, zapping Billy's eyes multiple times to return them to their original state. In the end, Billy is left with eyes that appear normal, though perhaps still with a hint of the uncanny. Sometime later, Billy's junk food binge leaves him feeling sick, and Mandy asks Grim to prepare his Granny Grim remedy. However, instead of helping Billy, the medicine creates a small monster called Yap Yap that resembles him. Yap Yap eventually separates from Billy and becomes his little clone. But when Mandy gives Yap Yap a bottle of soda, he melts away. Billy, missing his little friend, secretly eats his remains and starts imitating him. It's a strange turn of events, but that's just how things go in the world of Billy and Mandy. Their continuous abuse of Grim's powers ought to come at a cost, so this one time, the three of them are sentenced to community service at a supernatural retirement home, the Home of the Ancients, which is basically a retirement home for monsters no one finds scary anymore. Remember the Boogeyman? Well, he comes back in Season 3, and we find out from his middle school yearbook that he was known as the biggest jerk for terrorizing kids. He pays Grim a visit to relive some old memories, but Grim isn't exactly thrilled about it. They engage in a scare-off, and guess what? Grim transforms into a rubber duck and still manages to come out on top. In the end, the Boogeyman gets exorcised into the Nightmare Realm, where he ends up in the nostril of a thorn monster that Billy has actually tamed. Now, a more delicate theme. Despite being a Grim Reaper, Grim has his fair share of interest in women. In one episode, Grim spots Eris, the goddess of chaos, and develops a crush on her, but she's more interested in a guy named Adonis. Meanwhile, Mandy and Eris play pranks on people, but when Eris targets Mandy, she seeks revenge. Mandy tricks Eris into kissing Grim by pretending he's Adonis, and naturally, she is horrified, but Mandy is happy that she got her revenge, while Grim is amused that his crush kissed him. Then, after a while, Grim falls head over heels for a gothic woman named Malaria. They hit it off and have a great time together, but Mandy cautions Grim that revealing his true nature as the Grim Reaper may jeopardize their relationship. Grim brushes off her concerns and decides to showcase his supernatural powers during a dance. Unfortunately, Malaria is taken aback and flees in fear, unable to handle the truth about Grim. However, the thing he loves the most is his job and his trusty Scythe, which he named Jody in the episode The Talking Tree. In fact, Grim loves his job so much that he once had to take anger management classes for liking it way too much.
Mine!
Speaking of which, one day, Billy decides to sell a bunch of random stuff from his house, including Grim's precious Scythe, to buy a sea critter. The thing is, Billy mistakes it for a golf club and sells it to Irvine for a measly amusement park token. Of course, Grim is not too thrilled about it because that Scythe is no joke in the hands of mortals. Now, Irvine, who has a huge crush on Mandy, tries everything to win her over but faces constant rejection. That is, until he gets his hand on the Scythe and uses it to hypnotize Mandy into going on a date with him. Chaos ensues and the damage caused by the Scythe in Irvine's hands starts piling up. Thankfully, Grim manages to reclaim his Scythe, undoing all the havoc caused. Mandy, back to her normal self, threatens Irvine with a world of pain for his actions, and poor Irvine cowers in terror. Later, we see Billy's bedroom, where it's revealed that Grim has punished Irvine by turning him into a sea critter and giving him to Billy as a pet. Irvine pleads for his release, but Billy, being Billy, puts an even scarier sea critter in a bowl with him. And well, let's just say it doesn't end well for Irvine. Then this one day, Grim's trusty Scythe wasn't working like it used to, so he decides to sharpen it up. But guess what? The blade breaks. Don't worry though, because Billy, Mandy, and Grim head on down to the Underworld to meet F, a genius gadget maker who's like a parody of James Bond's Q. F introduces them to Scythe 2.0, a brand new and improved Scythe that's all high-tech and fancy. It's got a mind of its own, can think and feel, and even has its own personality. Grim starts using Scythe 2.0 while his old Scythe is getting repaired. But things take a wild turn when Mandy tells Grim to do his usual embarrassing chores, and Grim passes them off to Scythe 2.0. Let's just say the new Scythe isn't a fan of being bossed around and decides to start reaping on its own, starting with Billy and Mandy. Luckily, Grim steps in and saves the day, taking Scythe 2.0 back to the Underworld and returning with his trusty old Scythe.
Hey, I'm Hoss Delgado. Wanna know where I come from?
And now, Hoss Delgado. Man, let me tell you about this guy. He used to be just your average kid, always getting picked last in sports and striking out with the ladies. Even as a door-to-door salesman, he couldn't catch a break. But one day, he had enough of that dull life and decided to transform himself into the coolest, most macho dude you've ever seen. And let me tell you, he succeeded, and I respect that. Hoss Delgado became the epitome of toughness and ghost hunting badassery. Bill, Mandy, and Grim are on a school trip to the museum and they bump into Hoss Delgado, the self-proclaimed paranormal hunter. Now, Hoss sees Grim and thinks, aha, time to get rid of this guy, so they start duking it out, causing all sorts of mayhem and destruction. However, Hoss realizes that Billy and Mandy are the ones controlling Grim. He figures out that their friendship with Grim is, well, unique to say the least, so he decides to back off and stop hunting Grim. Sometime later, Billy's curiosity gets the best of him when he reads the bad book, which possesses a powerful deity named Yog-Sothoth. With Yog-Sothoth's dark powers, Billy becomes possessed and overpowers Grim, aiming to set her free with the Scythe. Grim and Mandy turn to Hoss Delgado once again for assistance, but their attempts to stop Billy fail. Mandy then uses her wit and pushes Billy and the book back into the portal, banishing Yog-Sothoth to the Dreamlands. However, the Outer Gods don't want humans among them and send Billy back home, where he faces the disappointment of his friends. Hoss Delgado makes a return when our group accidentally resurrects the dead using Grim's evil powder. He lays waste to hundreds of zombies, but they keep coming back to life. Eventually, the group learns that they are after the brownies inside Grim's head, prompting them to feed him to them.
I'll just banish him to the puppet dimension if he gives me any trouble.
Then this one time, Billy's parents totally forget about their dinner plans with Principal Good Vibes, who was supposed to recommend Billy for Rollington Academy. But no worries, because Billy, as always, has got a solution. He invites Eris and Hoss Delgado to fill in as his parents. As you can imagine, things quickly spiral out of control during dinner. Eris summons these massive alien zombie lobsters that wreck Billy's house, but they do manage to defeat them in the end, thanks to Hoss. With the chaos settled, and after Hoss throws some serious threats at the principal, Billy gets accepted into Rollington Academy. Hoss and Eris part ways, acknowledging their mutual attraction, but knowing that they can't be together due to Eris being supernatural. However, they can't resist one last passionate makeout session, much to the disgust of our main trio. Meanwhile, Billy's excitement about the academy is short-lived because it turns out it's a military school. The episode ends with a montage of Billy's not-so-pleasant time at the military school, and it's safe to say it wasn't quite what he expected. In this crazy turn of events, Hoss Delgado finds himself in a pickle with Eris. He reveals that Eris has been wreaking havoc in his life, redecorating his room, destroying his precious photos, organizing his socks, and meddling with his wardrobe. Mandy wisely suggests that Hoss needs to break up with Eris if he wants his old life back. But Hoss, understandably, is apprehensive. He knows that Eris can get really intense when she's upset, and he's afraid of what she might do. Despite his fears though, Hoss tries multiple times to end the relationship, but Eris reacts angrily to each attempt. In a shocking turn, Eris transforms into a giant bug and eats Hoss as a display of her fury. Who would have known breaking up with a supernatural being wouldn't be this easy?
Don't be so modest, Nigel. Take credit where credit is due.
While Billy is portrayed as this carefree and idiot character, Mandy has her fair share of intricate, elaborate evil schemes. As summer rolls around, Billy and Mandy are determined to avoid attending the usual summer camp. So what does Grim do? He sends them to Toadblatt's summer school of sorcery instead. When they arrive, they are greeted by Dean Toadblatt, who assigns them to Weaselthorpe House, the absolute worst house in the school. But our mischievous duo decides to sabotage Gunderstank, the favorite house, in order to secure a victory in the house championship. However, when Nigel tries to steal the credit from their success, this doesn't sit well with Mandy. She cleverly tricks Nigel into admitting his sabotage in front of Dean Toadblatt and Grim. As punishment, Nigel is sent to a battleground where he faces a mighty off-screen thrashing from a giant one-eyed dwarf. Before his beating, Nigel tries to shift the blame onto Mandy, but she dismisses his modesty and encourages him to take credit where it's due. After a while, in a boredom-induced moment, Billy, Mandy, Grim, and Irvine decide to peek into the future for some amusement. To their shock, they discover a dystopian world where Mandy has become an immortal half-worm demon, ruling as a ruthless dictator. Grim remains by her side while Billy's clones keep her company. Mandy's power stems from cinnamon, and she deceives Billy by claiming it as her weakness. However, Grim sees the oppression and forms a rebellion with Billy. They unknowingly play into Mandy's foresight as she had seen their rebellion through a crystal ball in the present. In a hilarious spoof of the popular anime Dragon Ball Z, Mandy decides to join a martial arts tournament. To gain an extra boost, she consumes a chicken ball, granting her incredible Saiyan-like abilities. With her hair styled like Vegeta's, she dominates the competition, defeating every opponent effortlessly. However, Billy shows up possessing the same superhuman powers, and the two rivals engage in an epic battle that shakes the entire building to its core. Using the winner's prize, Mandy purchases Bunny Island from the villainous Hector Concarne, which starts her quest for global domination. But that's not the only funny reference episode in the show. In My Fair Mandy, the gang decides to help Mandy with a beauty contest. And who do they call? None other than Grim's old pal, Krabina, the top-notch makeup artist from the Underworld. Krabina gives Mandy some advice that seems impossible. She tells her to smile. Now that's something Mandy never does, but hey, for the sake of the contest, they give it a shot. And guess what? Mandy actually lets out a smile after her performance. But here's a twist. By making Mandy smile, they've messed up with the natural order of things. And you know what happens next? Reality itself starts to crumble. The gang gets sucked into another dimension and ends up in Townsville. You remember Townsville? The city of the Powerpuff Girls. What a wild crossover. Billy once encounters Lord Payne, a demanding visitor from the plane of eternal suffering. Lord Payne insists on being led to the Master, and Billy unsuspectingly guides him to Grim, who turns out to be the one Lord Payne seeks. Eager to serve Grim, Lord Payne goes to great lengths to impress him, including tattooing his entire body with Grim's image. Initially resistant, Grim eventually takes advantage of Lord Payne's willingness and assigns him the household chores. However, things take a twist when Lord Payne discovers that it's Mandy who holds the true power over Grim. In the end, Mandy convinces Lord Payne to serve her and can be seen mashing potatoes for her. Despite her seemingly cold and unfeeling exterior, Mandy, like any human, is not immune to emotions. In a surprising turn of events, she finds herself experiencing an unfamiliar sensation: love. This revelation comes when Billy introduces his friend Piff to Mandy, causing her to feel an undeniable attraction. Mandy seeks guidance from the school nurse, who explains that love is a pathway to inner happiness. But Mandy is repulsed by the idea. In an extreme measure, she decides to have her heart removed, hoping to rid herself from this foreign and unwanted emotion. In the episode Keeper of the Reaper, Billy and his family are moving out of Ennsville, so him and Mandy must decide who will keep Grim. They settle their dispute in the Underworld court, but things take a wild turn when the judge places Billy and his family under house arrest and gives Mandy the custody of Grim.
Bubble! I would have named him Jeff.
This one time, when Billy fetches a soda from Grim's trunk, he unwittingly discovers an egg inside. To his surprise, the egg hatches into a large spider named Jeff, who mistakes Billy for his father. Despite Billy's initial fear and attempts to squash him, Jeff only wants to assist his dad. Eventually, Billy decides to hire an exterminator, but instead of eliminating Jeff, the exterminator is won over by Jeff's kindness and impressive culinary skills. As a result, the exterminator becomes like a father figure to Jeff, and they form an unexpected bond. Jeff makes a return on Father's Day to wish his father Billy, who just so happens to hate spiders, a happy Father's Day. Jeff thinks he will win him over if he is mean like Mandy, but despite all the tries, he is unable to teach him anything. In the end, he learns to be mean from Grimm and exclaims there won't be a Mr. Nice Spider anymore. However, this still won't win him Billy's affection. Sometime later, Jeff the Spider, who I thought was a dude all this time, lays a bunch of eggs. And guess what? He wants Billy to be the babysitter. Billy, being his scaredy cat self, freaks out and tries to hide in a giant billboard teacup. Jeff explains that he can only live up to 36 hours after laying the eggs, and that his time is almost over, which is why he wants Billy to be his children's grandfather. Meanwhile, the teacup starts rolling down the road, turning the whole thing into a crazy car chase. It's like everyone in the city is after Billy, including Jeff, Harold, Grimm, Mandy, and even the police. The chase goes on, and in the end, Jeff saves Billy and leaves the spider babies with the town to take care of. But here's the real kicker. Grimm secretly extends Jeff's lifespan because he just loves seeing Billy getting scared of spiders.
Right, son?
Right, Dad.
Now, you remember Nergal, the monster from the center of the earth? Well, as it turns out, he has been lonely and spying on Aunt Sis from his monitors. When he hears the sad tale of her first breakup, he decides to resurface and ask her on a date. After the lovely evening, Sis falls in love with him and accepts his marriage proposal, and thus he becomes Billy's uncle.
Nephew.
In the episode Son of Nergal, Sis and Nergal have a child named Nurgle Jr. He makes his first appearance at the winter camp organized by Harold and Grimm. With his monstrous form, Nurgle Jr. feels ashamed and tries to fit in by transforming into different campers, hoping to find acceptance among them. Later, Nurgle Jr. joins Enswell Elementary School. Unfortunately, he becomes the target of bullying from a kid named Spurg. Billy suggests that Jr. uses shapeshifting abilities to impersonate Miss Butterbean and help him pass a math test. Junior likes the idea, but ends up using his transformed self to get back at Spurg instead. In a surprising turn of events, Spurg becomes Junior's pet, residing in the center of the Earth. Nergal Jr. makes another appearance in the episode Runaway Pants, where the school is holding a fitness test and Nergal Jr. is having no trouble due to his shapeshifting abilities. Meanwhile, Billy cannot even do one sit-up without having his head explode. During the final test, a 50-meter race, Billy asks Nergal Jr. to shapeshift into his pants and help him win the race. And according to Mandy, this is actually the single most brilliant idea Billy has ever had. Billy wins the race with ease, but Nergal Jr. can't stop running and can't change back to normal. As he runs through the entire world, he makes the news of being a fitness freak and becomes so famous to the point that he becomes an international hero. Suddenly, Mandy cuts to this black and white scene where a narrator is telling a story of how Billy became a worldwide sensation, claiming none of this actually happened. The episode ends with the gang beating up the narrator for telling a false story to us, the audience. In one episode, we got to see how Billy would look like in the future.
Hey, who's the old dork with the cool clothes?
That's you, Pinhead.
So here's what went down. Billy, being the forgetful kid he is, didn't do his history homework. But lucky for him, Grimm came to the rescue with a universal remote control that could mess with time and space. With this fancy gadget, Billy and Mandy went on an epic adventure, traveling through different eras like the American Revolution, prehistoric times, and even the future. Along the way, they bumped into an older version of Billy who had just finished his report, but young Billy, being Billy, flushed it down to the toilet. Things got even crazier when they ended up in a mixed-up timeline where past and future collided, causing all sorts of mayhem. Meanwhile, young Billy got stuck in the Stone Age and fell head over heels for a cave girl. Thus, Billy became the ancestor of every person in the present. Fast forward to the present, and everyone, including Mandy and Irvine, started looking and acting like Billy with those trademark dot eyes and a big nose. So that was the wacky world of Billy and Mandy and its timeline so far. If you enjoyed the video as much as we did making it for you, drop us a like and subscribe to our channel for more awesome tunes like this recapped on your feed. As always, thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one. Peace!